The movie follows a woman named Helen, whose life takes an unexpected and terrifying turn when she receives a mysterious phone call. The voice on the other end urgently warns her to flee her home immediately, as dangerous individuals are on their way to kill her. What makes this even more unsettling is that the voice belongs to none other than Helen herself, but from the future. This cryptic warning leaves Helen rattled and desperate to understand what is happening. Who is after her, and how is it possible that she received a call from her future self? The story begins with Helen waking from a restless sleep, still deeply mourning the loss of her husband Wells, who was murdered a few weeks ago under mysterious circumstances. His death remains unsolved, and Helen is left with lingering questions and a profound sense of grief. Wells was not just an engineer, he was a brilliant researcher working at an advanced scientific institute called Curvature, a company dedicated to unlocking the secrets of time manipulation. Still struggling to cope with her husband's loss, Helen decides to meet with Thomas, a close colleague of Wells, at a local restaurant. Thomas, upon seeing Helen, immediately notices that she is not in the best mental state. Her husband's sudden and unexplained death has left her emotionally shattered. However, Thomas believes she still has the intellectual capacity to contribute to the groundbreaking work at Curvature. He confides in Helen that, after Wells' death, he is in dire need of a research partner to continue their project, a project that could change the course of history. Despite her grief, Helen agrees to help Thomas, determined to uncover the truth about what her husband was working on. Helen arrives at the research institute, hoping to focus on her work, but her mind is restless. She struggles to concentrate, still haunted by the loss of her husband Wells. Seeing her frustration, a kind and supportive colleague named Alex steps in to help her. He guides her through her tasks, offering both assistance and a sense of comfort during this difficult time. Later, Helen decides to visit her former physics professor, Florence, someone she trusts and respects. She hopes that speaking with Florence might give her some clarity, or at least provide a distraction from the chaos in her life. The two women sit together, reminiscing about the past over drinks. They talk about the time when Helen was a college student, full of ambition and curiosity. Florence remembers how dedicated Helen was to science and how she once built a small robot as part of a college project. As Helen picks up the robot, lost in nostalgia, she recalls how it was during those days that she first met Wells. Florence sees the pain in Helen's eyes and feels sorry for her. Wanting to help, she hands Helen the key to her university lab, telling her that she can use the space whenever she wants. That night, Helen finds herself lost in memories. She recalls a special moment from the past, a time when she and Wells shared a kiss, filled with love and warmth. The memory feels so real that, for a brief moment, she almost forgets he is gone. But as she turns her gaze toward the bedroom door, reality hits her hard. Wells is never coming back. He has left her forever. A deep sadness washes over her as she struggles to accept the emptiness that now fills her life. The next morning, Helen slowly opens her eyes, feeling disoriented. Something seems strange. As she looks around her house, a chill runs down her spine. Everything is covered in a thick layer of dust, as if she has been gone for weeks rather than just a night. Confused and uneasy, she tries to make sense of what is happening. Suddenly, her phone rings. She picks it up, expecting to hear a familiar voice. But what she hears instead shakes her to the core. It's her own voice speaking from the other end. The voice on the phone sounds urgent and panicked, warning her to leave the house immediately. Helen's future self tells her that she is in danger and that a group of people is on their way to her house in a black car. Helen's heart pounds in her chest. She can't believe what she's hearing. How is this possible? Is this some kind of joke? But deep down, something tells her that this is real. She doesn't have time to think. She has to act fast. Without hesitation, she grabs her things and rushes out of the house, just as her future self instructed. Before the call ends, the voice gives her one final warning: don't trust anyone. A man named Crevice arrives at Helen's house with a group of people, but by then, Helen has already run away. Barefoot, she manages to reach Alex's house without anyone noticing. When Alex sees her, he tells her that she has been missing for a week. Helen is confused and says she has no idea where she was or what happened during that time. The only thing she remembers is that her car disappeared, and she might have gone to her cabin and forgotten it there. She asks Alex to take her to her cabin to figure out what's going on. When they arrive, they see a car approaching. It's Helen's car, but it drives away before they can stop it. Helen calls her own phone using Alex's phone, and to her shock, the call is answered by her future self. Alex also speaks to the future Helen, but he thinks someone is playing a prank on them. However, Helen insists that the woman on the phone is really her future version. Hearing this, Alex starts to worry about Helen's mental state and suggests she see a doctor, but Helen refuses, saying that something strange is going on, and the Curvature Institute is hiding the truth from them. She is determined to find out what her husband and Tom were working on. Alex then considers the possibility that Tom and Wells were trying to send a person back in time, and maybe, just maybe, they actually succeeded. Meanwhile, at the lab, Tom and Crevice are interviewing a time traveler they had sent to to the past. However, the man claims he doesn't remember what happened to him or where he was for the past week, just like Helen, who also has no memory of that time. Tom and Crevice believe Helen is hiding something from them after traveling through time. They are determined to find her, especially since she ran away when Crevice went to her house. Elsewhere, Helen and Alex are at the cabin, where Helen reveals that she found Wells' dead body there. He had taken his own life. Alex comforts her, saying he understands her pain because he also lost his wife. He advises her to stop worrying about time travel and focus on living a happy life. Later, while fixing up the cabin, Helen discovers a locked trunk under the bed that wasn't there before. She tries a password that she and Wells often used, and the trunk unlocks. Inside, she finds a large rifle. Helen starts to wonder if her future self left it there for her protection. If I were in her place, I would have left lottery numbers instead so my past self could get rich. What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. After some time, Helen finds her husband's broken watch lying on the ground. Seeing it brings back memories, and she starts looking around at all the things her husband had built. As she examines the cabin, her eyes land on a blackboard filled with equations and notes. She is certain that the last time she and Wells were here, they had played a word game on that very board. But now the equations seem like a clue. Curious, Helen starts solving the equation. As she works through it, she and Alex discover something unexpected: a hidden camera installed inside the cabin. Realizing that someone had been watching them, they search the entire cabin for the camera's location. Eventually, they find it hidden inside a deer mannequin. However, when they try to access the footage, they realize the camera is password protected, and they have no way to unlock it. Meanwhile, Crevice is tracking Helen using a device he secretly placed on her car. Following the signal, he successfully finds Helen's location. He eventually tracks her down at a hardware store. But before he can approach her, Helen notices him and quickly escapes. Even though he fails to catch her, Crevice manages to take photos of Helen through the store's surveillance cameras. In the images, she is seen buying explosive materials, which raises even more suspicion. Now both Crevice and Tom are determined to find her, believing she is involved in something much bigger than they first thought. Alex decides to call Tom and gives him Helen's address. As a result, Tom and Crevice quickly head toward the cabin, planning to capture Helen. Helen spots them approaching and immediately grabs the rifle from the trunk, preparing to defend herself. Moments later, Crevice and Tom arrive at the door and demand that she come outside. Crevice questions Helen about what she was doing at the hardware store and what she bought there. Feeling trapped, Helen turns to Alex for help. This time, Alex chooses to assist her. As Tom opens the door, Helen surprises them by standing behind them with the rifle aimed at them. She fires a warning shot and orders Crevice to drop his gun. She then takes Crevice's weapon, making it clear that she doesn't trust Tom at all. Before making her escape, Helen shoots out the tires of Tom and Crevice's car, ensuring they won't be able to follow her. As Alex drives away with Helen, he suddenly receives a text message on his phone. The message is from Helen, but not the one sitting next to him. It's from her future self. The message reveals that she has seen the footage from the hidden camera, hinting that she now knows the truth. Meanwhile, Crevice has a backup plan. He had installed a tracking device in his gun, and since Helen took his gun, he can track her every move. Without realizing it, Helen is unknowingly leading Crevice straight to her. As Crevice starts following her, Helen and Alex try to escape by speeding up the car. But in the process, Helen loses control and the car crashes. Both of them manage to get out just in time and start running on foot. However, Crevice doesn't give up and continues chasing them. Desperate to get away, Helen and Alex manage to board a bus and escape, but Crevice still has their location thanks to the tracker. While on the bus, Helen suddenly experiences a vision. Something clicks in her mind, and she remembers the password for the hidden camera they found in the cabin. Later, Alex and Helen check into a hotel where they connect the hidden camera to a projector to watch the footage. What they see shocks them. In the recording, Thomas and Wells are sitting inside the cabin, having a serious conversation. They are discussing their time travel project. Thomas tells Wells that he plans to hand over the project to the CIA, which would pay them a huge amount of money in return. Wells, however, is furious. He warns Thomas that he will expose both him and the CIA. He reveals that the CIA intends to use time travel technology as a weapon to gain an advantage in wars and battles. Wells refuses to let that happen and threatens to go public with the truth. He even says he will destroy the time machine himself if necessary, but Thomas dismisses Wells' concerns, telling him that a scientist's job is simply to create projects and sell them for profit. As Wells listens to Thomas's words, anger boils inside him. He abruptly stands up from his chair and storms out of the cabin. While he is away, Thomas seizes the opportunity. He secretly mixes poison into Wells' drink. Watching this footage, Helen is horrified. The truth is now clear. Thomas, her own colleague, was the one who murdered Wells. Everything starts making sense. Her future self had called her to ensure she learned the truth. Helen now understands that she only discovered all of this because she traveled to the past, and she still has a chance to expose Thomas before it's too late. Before she can act, Crevice arrives at the hotel, guns blazing. He is determined to eliminate both Helen and Alex. A fight breaks out between Crevice and Alex, giving Helen a chance to escape. She dashes toward the emergency exit and slips away before Crevice can catch her. Desperate for answers, Helen heads straight to her university. When she arrives, she finds Florence waiting for her, visibly upset. Florence tells Helen that she was here just moments ago, but Helen knows she hasn't been here yet. It can only mean one thing: her future self was here first. According to Florence, future Helen had been in the lab, working on something, and had refused to let Florence enter. Now, when Florence and the present Helen go to check the lab, they find nothing unusual. It's empty. Helen asks Florence how long ago her future self was here, and Florence replies, "Just 15 minutes ago." Realizing that her future self is still close by, Helen rushes out of the building. She knows exactly what her future self is trying to do: kill Thomas. Meanwhile, Alex confronts Crevice, telling him that the time travel machine is real and that, at this very moment, there are two Helens in their reality. To prove it, Alex shows Crevice the footage of Thomas poisoning Wells. Realizing the truth, Crevice agrees to work with Alex. They decide to team up to find both Thomas and Helen before things spiral further out of control. At the same time, Helen reaches Thomas's location and spots him talking to a government agent. Realizing she has no time to waste, she heads to a nearby gas station. Desperate, she holds a man at gunpoint and takes his car, then speeds off toward Curvature Company. When she arrives, she storms in and aims her gun at Thomas. However, instead of threatening to kill him, she warns him she's not here to take his life, but to save him. She tells Thomas that if she doesn't stop him, his future self will be the one to kill him. Before Thomas can respond, his security guards intervene. They detain Helen and take her to Curvature's headquarters, where she and Thomas have a private conversation in a secure room. Helen looks Thomas in the eye and accuses him, saying she knows he poisoned her husband's drink. However, Thomas smirks, dismissing her words as nonsense. He tells her that if she had really time traveled, the security cameras in the facility would have captured her presence. According to him, there is no evidence of her ever using the machine. At this moment, the truth becomes clear. Helen's future self had already infiltrated the facility using Wells' ID card. Thomas finally admits the truth. Wells was planning to destroy the time machine, so he had no choice but to kill him. Hearing this confession, Helen grabs a letter opener from the table and points it at Thomas. Her voice shakes with anger as she calls him out for what he really is: a selfish, ruthless man who would do anything for power. Meanwhile, Helen's future self sets explosives around the facility and starts a countdown timer. As the clock ticks down, Thomas rushes toward the time machine, realizing that future Helen is about to escape one last time. He tries to stop her, but it's too late. Future Helen activates the machine and vanishes in a flash, returning to her original timeline. The timer reaches 0, and a massive explosion erupts, destroying the time machine completely. The blast is powerful, and Helen is injured, but before she collapses, Alex arrives just in time to catch her and make sure she's safe. Amid the smoke and debris, Thomas also emerges alive. He, Crevice, Alex, and Helen exchange silent glances, knowing that everything has changed. The scene then shifts to the next day. In the final moments of the movie, we see Helen back at work at Curvature Company, trying to move on. While working, she receives a mysterious package. When she opens it, she finds a pen drive sent by her future self. Curious, she plays the video on it. On the screen, she sees footage of herself and Wells happily living together before everything went wrong. In the video, Wells also explains details about the time machine and how she can operate it. As Helen watches, tears well up in her eyes. The movie ends with her staring at the screen, lost in thought as she reflects on everything that has happened. And that concludes this time travel story. I hope you understood the movie well. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like and leave a comment. I'll be back soon with another amazing movie breakdown. Until then, take care and thanks for watching.